Hello, dear listeners. Dave here on behalf of Matt and Abby. We're on spring break this week, and so we're not in the studio recording. And instead, we just wanted to leave you with a reminder that we are going to be doing our first ever book discussion coming up. And we're going to be reading the book Flourishing Together by Lynn Swanner and Andy Wolf. We would love it if you would read along with us and even submit questions you might have. The book has 5 sections, and we're going to take one section each week beginning on March 30 of 2022. We have information about the book listed in the show notes, and you can check it out and order yourself a copy from Amazon through that link. Even if you can't order the book, we'd love to have you listen along and think through what does flourishing look like? And how do Christian educators play a role in the flourishing of their students? You can submit your questions to hallwayconvospod@gmail.com. That's hallwayconvospod@gmail.com. We always love hearing from listeners, so whether you just have feedback or comments or questions you'd like to ask, we'd love to hear from you. So this week we have an episode out of the archive for you. This is one of my personal favorites that we ever recorded. This was a listener question from Kevin, who asked us, what role should end of the year award ceremonies play in schools? And we think together about, the way awards sometimes go awry, and we try to reimagine what award ceremonies could look like. So as you're maybe looking ahead towards the end of the school year, when you might be thinking about providing awards for your students, hopefully this episode gives you some food for thought about ways to make that a very meaningful and life-giving experience for all of our students. Enjoy. Welcome to Hallway Conversations. We're a trio of educators who have plenty of questions about teaching and learning and school culture, and we believe in the value of collaboration and reflection as we seek to keep growing as teachers. So this podcast is our place for thinking out loud together about issues in education and why they might matter to Christian educators. Welcome to the conversation.
Hello everyone, welcome to Hallway Conversations. My name is Matt Beamers.
I'm Abby DeGroat.
And I'm Dave Mulder.
As always, we want to thank you for allowing the three of us to be here with you, and we want to thank you for joining us in the hallway this week. Each week, one of us brings a question, and we try to think creatively around it in the context of Christian education. We are good friends who love each other and love engaging each other in conversation about our practice, and our deep hope is that you are enriched and encouraged in your own work, and maybe even in your everyday walking around life. While we have a long list of topics we want to talk about, we want to know what hallway conversations you would like to hear. If you have questions or feedback or ideas about this broadcast, or simply want to share what hallway conversations you're having, we ask that you email us at hallwayconvospod@gmail.com. That's hallwayconvospod@gmail.com. Today our question is actually coming from one of our listeners, Kevin in Ontario, Canada, and here's today's question.
Well, hello, Matt, Dave, and Abby. I just have to say it's a distinct honor and pleasure to throw a question your way. Being a fly on the wall in your hallway conversations has been delightful, and I do look forward weekly to hearing some answers on the spot. So encouragement in your work. So here's my question for you. My name is Kevin Huning. I'm an administrator in the Niagara area of Ontario, and I've been wondering this. Schools generally love to celebrate and award things at the end of the year. What place do each of you see year-end awards assemblies having, and without pushing you too far in one direction, why do we need to celebrate the things that we've already celebrated, like high academic achievement, athletic achievement, or other ways we put certain specific types of students on pedestals? What about the students who worked really hard and are rarely celebrated? Who are we missing? I'm curious which award, if each of you had the choice, would you drop from these celebrations, and what award would you add to these celebrations? Thanks so much. Blessings in your work.
Well, folks.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah. No, it's a great question.
So, without giving too much away, one of the three of us has a long list of awards.
That's right.
That she does not carry around with her.
Oh my.
But we are well aware that some of us achieved academic excellence much earlier than others.
Matt, some of us are good at school.
This is true.
So,
And this was me.
Abby,
Yeah.
why don't you take a crack at this first? What's going through your
Right.
mind?
So when I heard this question, I a story came to my mind because I think of when I was in it in high school, right? School was just something that I thrived at because I was one of those kids who did school. I loved it. It came naturally to me. I wasn't an all-star athlete by any means, so none of my awards were athletic. Let's just get that out of the way, right? But I was very good at school. And so I think without even realizing it, I accumulated certificates and, right, like the things that one does, the tassels and they were there. They were part of the backdrop. And I remember at my graduation party, as one does, you display a lot of those things. And I think that I took for granted that other people all had things to display. And so the funny part of the story is that my husband, we had just started dating, like at the end of our senior year, and we're very different people in a lot of ways. One of which being that was not his story at all, right? He is so gifted and was driving 18-wheel semi-trucks around the yard at 18.
Right.
And just incredibly gifted in so many things. Lovable, right? He's the life of the party. But school was not the place where he thrived. And so I remember his parents came to my graduation party, and he tells the story of they came and took one look at this table of all of this stuff and left with him and literally said to him, "You be very nice to that girl." Right? Because it was outside of their...
It was not the world they were living in.
Right. And so it's an interesting way for me to think about awards and loving someone who didn't have that same experience with school. And so... yeah, that's kind of my context that I bring.
When I heard this question, I also thought of a story. So Abby and I are different in many ways. Like, Abby has her awards hanging in everyone else's offices because she has run out of room on the walls in her own. No, but I won one award in high school. One.
Yeah.
And it was my grade 10 year, sophomore year, and it was the PE award. The physical education award, because it's really, school was not easy for me, and part of it is I didn't make it easy for myself, and we could do a whole podcast on that. But no, it just wasn't easy for me, but I loved athletics, and it was the one place in the school, to be quite honest, I felt safe. Was the gym and playing sports. I loved it. It really was a reprieve for me. From the rest of school.
Sure.
And so when I won this award, I was really proud. I still have it, to be honest with you. I can still picture it. It's on a blue piece of paper, and it's in a binder in our basement. I could find it in less than a minute. I know exactly where it is. And interestingly, on the way home, I was driving home with someone. And, the awards was a big deal. And I shared that I won this award. And one of the people that I was driving with, and it was in jest, and I believe that, said, "Oh, that doesn't count. That's just the PE award." And that was really hard for me to hear. In fact, as I tell it now, it's still kind of hard. And like I said, I know the person who said it, and so it was in jest. But I still remember that comment. And it made me think even now as I sit here, right? Like, what do we uphold as what counts and what doesn't when it comes to awards?
Right.
But and I can go both ways, and we'll talk about that, about awards. But I became a PE teacher. Like that, and not because of that award, but it was one way that for me it affirmed one gift in me at a time when I didn't feel like I had many gifts.
Right.
And so for me, that became an important thing. So it can be really, I can get to a place where I can criticize awards and the emphasis on them, and yet I have to be honest to say that one award, my only one, was part of my journey and affirmed a gift when I didn't know that I had many of them.
That it really meant something to you.
It meant something to me, and I think that's why it means something to me
formed
still
you
today.
in a way.
Yeah, for sure. That it was part of a bigger story of setting me on a trajectory in my life.
Right.
Just thinking about like Kevin's question was, why are we celebrating that which we've already celebrated? Like, what? Well, and I assume that he's talking about like through the giving of grades or like I'm trying like, hey, like we've already honored these people. Now we're honoring them again. My wonder is when we do these awards, have we given thought to how these awards align or don't align with our mission and vision statement? Like I've said before, like I see a mission and vision statement as sort of our promise statement. So like I was at a school that was educating for wholeness by engaging God's world in the servant way of Jesus. If we're going to give an award, how does that award align with educating for wholeness?
Yeah.
How does it align with what it means to engage the world in the servant way of Jesus? And I think that's in that sense, do the audio and the video match? Like this is what we're on about. And do awards do that? And so I don't have an answer. I just know what it's like for some students and myself included. Like you go to the awards ceremony, hey, we sort of know who's getting the awards, and at least I know who wasn't getting the award, and that was me.
But you're saying it was a surprise.
Yeah, totally. And yet, on the other hand, there is something good about learning to celebrate the gifts of other people,
Well, that's right.
And that's
Yes.
and like, can I find joy? Can I find joy in seeing the good gifts of my friends be honored? On the other hand, Abby shared a story about the giftedness of her husband that happened outside of school, and yet how do we honor those gifts? Like that, and that's the tension I feel like I just feel as we have this discussion.
So I'll tell a bit of a story. A former school that I served at early in my teaching career, and I don't know if this was like a mission alignment. I really like that question that you raised, Matt, to say that. But something that we did very intentionally for our graduating 8th graders, we had an award ceremony, but it really was just for our junior high. And it was a sort that we tried to, as junior high teachers, we spent a good chunk of time together talking through, like, okay, let's look at this list of graduating 8th graders. What gifts does every kid have that we can celebrate? And sometimes it was academic. So we had like the Master Mathematician Award, right? Like that kid who just got math, and he's going to get that award. But we also looked and said, wow, look at how he cares for his classmates. And so another kid got the Compassionate Friend Award. And not in any sense of cynicism or anything like that. It was something to celebrate. Like, this guy, he's going to come alongside him. And then there's another kid who's off riding his dirt bike in the desert every weekend. And he got the Likes Bikes Award. And it was something to celebrate for him, too. And that wasn't something academic, but it was like, look at how God has gifted you with this, and you've developed your talents, and you're out there winning races and stuff. And for every kid, and so, you go through a list of 60 8th graders, and for us as teachers, we took turns presenting an award to, like, hey, this is something, we see you, we know you.
I love that idea.
And it made a difference. And for, like, the 6th and 7th graders who were coming up to see, like, the intentionality we had as teachers to name giftedness that we saw in our students, that felt like something to celebrate.
And in that sense, you're forming the award to your student.
Right.
Instead of having a preset list of things, right, that you are then assigning.
Right.
Which I think is a big difference, actually.
Yeah.
To look at the student first and go from there, instead of have this preset list of the PE award or the music award, and have one person that you have to pick out where people get missed. The school I came from moved to very much a seasonal celebration of things that happened, and I thought that was a good model in some ways, that there wasn't like a pre-created award, but it was, we're going to celebrate all the things that have happened in the fall. And so, this person made All-State choir, or this team, here's what this team accomplished in the fall, and here is what our speech team did, and so there was all of these, and they would take turns coming down and talking about all of these different things, and so it would happen organically after every season. There was a fall one, right? There was a winter one, and there's a spring one. And I do like that sense of, let's take a minute and say, look what we've done. Because I do think that you're right. There is some needed celebration around the good work
Right.
that our students are doing, and naming that
Yeah.
and calling it what it is, right? I also think that when I think about awards and in that sense too, even I would encourage schools to keep adding programs that would allow different kinds of giftedness to shine through in school environments.
Yeah.
So the high school where I worked recently added an ag program, for example, which
Yeah.
which I would have loved them to have the whole time I was teaching there, because I had so many students who would have flourished
Right.
in that environment, who did not flourish in an English classroom. Right? And so I also like that idea of educating for wholeness, and that in itself will organically lead to more opportunities for kids to get awards in the context of school when the school programs more faithfully reflect the wholeness of God's creation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it does make me, as I think about it, I don't think it's, I used to think about it as sort of a either do it or don't do it, kind of like be all in or forget about it, and I wonder, I'm trying to think about this as a both and, like, what does it mean to do it well? To do it that I think language does matter. Dave, you alluded this to,
Yep.
like, what are we celebrating? Are we celebrating who just has the highest grade in math? Are we celebrating something beyond? Are we celebrating the unique gifts? I love the idea of what you did at a middle school.
Yep.
Because when you say that, what I like about that is we're giving an award to this student that we actually can't give to anyone else. Like, this is only for you. Like, this is like your scene. We know you, and I do think one of the responsibilities in Christian schools is this idea of students being known and knowing each other, and it's one
Yes.
way we communicate to students in an honoring way, but yet
Right.
there's a playfulness, but a seriousness to it actually.
And ideally that's how it's going to
Yeah.
balance out, right?
Yeah.
Like, yes, we can laugh together about
Yeah.
this because you do like bikes after all,
Yeah.
right? But wow, that's fantastic. We should
Right.
celebrate that.
Yeah,
Right.
and I've been at a school where a bit like the seasonal, we did every month as one of our chapels, we'd recognize 10 or 12 students who teachers paid attention to, being a community builder, being a creation enjoyer, and they would just recognize that, hey, I saw you do this and we want to name it. And like I said, there was a playfulness to it, but also I think an honoring to it, to say we see these gifts in you, because I do think as Christian schools, like part of our work is developing the gifts we know that these children have in them, but it's also helping them discover gifts maybe they didn't know they had. And so even awards like that, like, so going back to my story of getting this PE award, like, I did feel seen, I did feel honored, and it did, like I said, it helped me name maybe gifts that I knew that I had, and again was part of this larger story. And I sometimes think in positive ways, if we do it the right way and name it the right way, that these awards have the potential to help with students. I just think we need to realize that the shadow side of that then is they also have the potential to send students on the opposite trajectory.
That's right.
That no one has seen my gifts, no one has named my gifts, and I think there's a danger.
Or even competition
Yeah.
over gifts.
Right.
Totally. Like,
Right.
where does your identity? Like,
Right.
am I in it to win it, so to speak, and to not receive one, if that leads to feelings of less than. I don't think we can solely put that on the student, and we need to think about that as a school. If what we're
Right.
doing
Right.
is leading young people to think that they have less value, I think we need to be honest that we might be contributing to that through the giving of awards.
I also think as teachers, it's our job to see those things in an everyday way
Yeah, absolutely.
outside of the formal awards ceremony,
Yes.
right?
And
so
to make that a normal part to name
of our
it.
practice.
Yep.
Yeah, so notes, or we had these little forms we could send home, right? Like recognitions for that no one would see except for the student and the parent.
Yeah.
Or I remember I had a student who was going through something that I knew a little bit about but not a lot about, and I wrote her a note on one of her projects, right? Like, I see this, and I just affirmed some things that I saw in her. And her parents stopped me at graduation, right? And said, you have no idea what that means to this student. And I guess that was a wake-up call for me.
Absolutely.
To the power that those words have of simply, oh, I thought everyone saw this, or I thought she knew this, right? So just that encouragement to say it when you see it, and to affirm those gifts in students all the time.
Now, Kevin did ask one question that we have not addressed yet, and I could be, maybe I didn't hear this properly, but I thought he said if we had to only pick one award. Did he say that at the end of his question?
He said, what would you drop and what would you add?
What would you drop and what would you
I know the award I would drop. The perfect attendance award has to go.
Yeah.
Why are we celebrating that?
Yeah.
If seat time is the only thing that we care about, but then we're missing the point.
Yeah. Well, why? Can you talk a little bit, because this is actually a big deal for some people. Like somebody's listening right now,
Right.
and saying, "How dare you, Dave Mulder?" Like, well, why do you think that we should be dropped, Dave?
I've come to a point in my teaching career where I realize that my class is not the most important thing happening in my students' lives. And that it took me a long time to get there. I gotta be honest, right? Like, for a long time I thought, well, for sure my class is the most important thing. Kids have a whole lot of other things going on in their lives besides what's happening. And that's not to minimize the importance. Like, I would rather they're in class than that they're not in class, for sure. But I think there are other priorities too.
Yeah.
And so that's my best answer for that question right now.
I sometimes, I guess I overall, and maybe it's because it's not the culture that I grew up in, I find it sometimes interesting. I find honor rolls interesting.
Yeah.
Like, I find
I'm in that camp.
so
yeah.
I honestly have to give more thought to it, partly because I did not grow up in a school that there was an honor roll, or if there was an honor roll, I did not know about it because I was never on it.
Maybe you're on the dishonor roll.
Yeah, I was probably on the dishonor roll. Well, that's probably not actually untrue. No, I do wonder about honor rolls. And I know sometimes, I've seen in schools honor rolls and effort rolls, but I've also seen the A honor roll, the B honor roll, and I don't understand it all, to be honest. But I wonder about that.
I really love your idea and what you did with junior high students, right? So adding awards that are reflective of the gifts that you see in students.
Yeah, instead of saying this is the awards we have, is how do we meet those kids where they're at it? And I like that idea. It's like, how do we give something an award to recognize a student that could only be written for them? Like, this could only be for Abby, or this could only be for me. Like, you cannot give this piece of paper to anyone else in this school because it's so unique. I love the potential of that, I guess. Kevin, we hope we answered your question.
Did we?
We're not sure. Feel free to send us some follow-up questions. Good luck in Ontario. Friends, we know that your time is valuable. We want to thank you for joining us today for another hallway conversation. And whether it is this day, this week, this month, or this school year as it winds down, we do hope that the Lord gives you what you stand in need of, and that you end this year well. We want to thank each of you for the good, God-delighting work that we know you're doing in your schools and in your communities and with students. And as you go into this week, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace, and give you peace, and give you peace. Amen.
Amen.
Have a good week, everyone. Thanks very much.
This podcast was quite literally dreamed up during one of our actual hallway conversations. Our music is by Ethan Mulder. Hallway Conversations is an independent podcast created and produced by Matt Beamers, Abby DeGroat, and Dave Mulder. Thanks for listening.